This is your First Alert Weather Breakdown, a deep dive into how weather works with meteorologist CJ Cartledge.
And good morning, everyone, and welcome back. I'm First Alert meteorologist CJ Cartledge here, back on the KSLA First Alert Weather Breakdown for your Tuesday, September 9th. I hope you guys have had a great start to your Tuesday. This morning, we actually saw the coolest conditions we have seen throughout this summer so far, with temperatures dropping well into the 50s across the region. Even some areas north of I-30, I believe, got into the lower 50s out there, definitely making it feel like fall and perhaps even winter. We have seen some lows in the 50s in some of the winter months there, but this is definitely the coolest conditions we have seen all summer long. But we are expecting temperatures to rise as we move through the rest of this work week and into this weekend, sadly. So the relief is not expected to stay here for long. Today might actually be the last day where we'll see low humidity as well as below average temperatures across the entire Arklatex region. But here's a look outside through our KSLA tower camera. This is a look over downtown Shreveport here. We're looking at mostly clear conditions out there. As you can see far along the horizon. And conditions here are pleasant across the Shreveport and Bossier area, as well as the Arklatex as a whole here. Here's a look at First Alert Doppler radar. Not even a cloud in sight across the Arklatex as of the latest radar scan at 10:32. And we're going to be dealing with these conditions through the rest of today and into the next few days ahead. Here's a look at temperatures right now across the Arklatex. 75 by Shreveport, 73 for Natchitoches, 75 also for Mansfield, lower 70s near DeQueen as of right now, around 70 on the dot near Center in East Texas. We're looking at 71 for Longview and 74 by Nacogdoches. And we aren't seeing much humidity as of right now, so feels like temperatures are definitely very close, if not the same as actual temperatures as of right now. Let's take a look at our afternoon planner. Temperatures are expected to rise into the mid and upper 80s across the region. Upper 80s for most portions around the Arklatex, including Shreveport and Bossier. Would not be surprised if one or two areas hit the lower 90s today around the region here. Here's a look at highs for today. 88 for Texarkana, 88 for Doddridge, that is, 87 by Stamps. I'm going to move myself off the screen here. 87 for Magnolia, Hope, Prescott, and Stamps as well, as mentioned before. Spring Hill, 87, 83 over by Broken Bow. And over in Foreman, it looks to be at around 85 degrees for a high. And for East Texas, 86 by Longview, 92 for Henderson, 87 by Carthage, same for Center and most portions in East Texas south of I-20. Northwest Louisiana, we're likely to see the mid and upper 80s once again. Some areas getting close to the lower 90s, if not hitting the lower 90s out there in our Louisiana parishes. Here's a look at our forecast through the day tomorrow. We are expecting mostly clear conditions to remain through the night tonight and into the daytime hours. We're expecting winds to possibly change wind direction from coming out of the north, as what we're expecting for today, to coming out of the south, and that's going to allow our temperatures to rise even higher into the 90s and some even higher into the upper 80s out there. We could see a couple areas only rise into the upper 80s as we move throughout our Wednesday there. As you can see near Idabel and DeQueen, around 88 to 89 degrees. 93 for Texarkana, 92 by Marshall and Longview, 94 for Shreveport and Bossier, 93 for Natchitoches, 92 for Winfield, and 91 by Minden, Homer, and Ruston. 93 for Texarkana for a high tomorrow. These highs are expected to continue to increase here day by day as we move through the rest of this work week. As we head into this weekend, conditions remain fairly consistent there, around 96 degrees for a high. And temperatures mainly near or above the average for this time of year. Here's a look at our muggy meter. It shows that through the next 7 days, our humidity is expected to increase, moving out of that comfortable range, and we'll see dew points rise back into the mid and upper 60s out there. Definitely not in the 70s, or hopefully not in the 70s out there, which is that oppressive range that you see in the red. But we will be feeling muggy and or sticky conditions through the next 6 days at least outside of of today. Here's a look at our muggy meter in terms of dew points, showing that we're expecting the lower 60s heading into our Tuesday afternoon for highs in dew points, but we should see the mid and upper 60s heading into Wednesday and Thursday. You could see a bit of a drop in that humidity, but remaining fairly consistent in those mid 60s as we head into this weekend and into next week as well. Our precipitation outlook remains the same for the next 6 to 10 days, with drier than average conditions on the way for Shreveport and Bossier. That actually highlights our Arklatex region and areas surrounding it as well. Almost the entire state of Louisiana will go under drier than average conditions during the next 6 to 10 days. So that means we're not expecting, if any at all, any types of rain through the next 6 to 10 days ahead. And as we look towards the next 8 to 14 days, that risk looks to decrease for below average conditions, but we're still expecting below average rainfall or below average precipitation through the next 8 to 14 days as well. So from now through the next 2 weeks ahead, we're not expecting much rain. Make sure to water those plants a bit extra as we go through this time frame, at least the next 2 weeks. Our temperature outlook shows that our temperatures look to remain above the average for this time of year. So once we rise back above the average later on this week, more than likely by tomorrow, we're going to stay there through the next 6 to 10 days and likely through the next 8 to 14 days as well. And looking at the Atlantic coast, they are expecting below average conditions for this time of year through the next 6 to 10 days, but most of the country, warmer than average conditions are on the way. So mixing the warmer than average temperatures with the lack of rainfall that we can expect through the next 2 weeks, we could possibly see some areas go under even worse drought conditions. There are some areas like Magnolia and DeQueen under moderate drought conditions, which is level 2 on the drought scale. It's a slight drought conditions surrounding most areas in southwestern Arkansas and portions of East Texas and northern near the state line of Louisiana and Arkansas. But that's pretty much it across the Arklatex. Maybe some areas dealing with some slight drought near Mount Pleasant as well as south and west of Idabel, but that's about it. Everybody else has received a good amount of rainfall, but we could see drought conditions grow as we move through the next couple of days here, or at least the next 2 weeks without rainfall because we're not expecting any. No chance of tropical development through the next 7 days either, but there is a 20% chance that we could see something develop out there in the Gulf of Mexico through the next 2 weeks, so we'll have to watch that very closely as well as in the middle of the Atlantic there. There's no chance through the next 7 days, but there could be a chance through the next 8 to 14 days ahead. Now, we have seen 6 storms form, one of them only becoming a hurricane, and only one of them, that same one, becoming a major hurricane. It actually reached Category 5 status last month. That's Hurricane Aaron, that is. Every other storm that has formed this season so far was only a tropical storm. Andrea, Barry, Chantal, Dexter, and Fernand were all tropical storms. The next name on the list, the next tropical storm, if it forms, would be named Gabrielle. We are expecting 13 to 18 named storms this season, so that goes all the way up to potentially Sebastian, but it could stop at names before Sebastian or names after Sebastian. So we'll have to continue to wait and see on what the latest update would be for that, and see how this hurricane season goes as we approach the peak time for this hurricane season and as we go through the second half of it. Here's a look at our 7-day forecast. We are expecting temperatures to rise and conditions to remain clear in those skies here. 0% rain chances throughout the next 7 days and likely throughout the next 14 days as well. We saw the coolest conditions of this season earlier this morning, but we are expecting temperatures to warm back up also in the morning hours and not just the afternoon, mainly because of southerly flow out there around the Arklatex. 89 degrees looks to be the high for Tuesday, 94 by Wednesday, 95 on Thursday, and around 96 degrees, and we'll stay there throughout the weekend and going into next week as well. Lower 70s are expected for lows heading into our Thursday morning through the rest of the forecast period as well. But this is what we're going to be dealing with. Drier than average conditions and warmer than average conditions. This could pose some drought possibilities for some areas around the Arklatex. It could cause the drought up in the north and eastern quadrant of the Arklatex to grow. Make sure to water those plants a little bit extra throughout the next couple of days, and water yourselves. Drink plenty of water out there. It's definitely going to be dry and hot, and we're expecting the humidity to return later on this week as well. But what you may have not, what you may have heard on the news before or in the past few days before, especially throughout this weekend, was the total lunar eclipse that had happened throughout this weekend. It did not happen or it was not visible in the North American regions as well as South America, but it was visible across most of the world, even in Europe, Asia, Africa, as well as Russia as well, or northern portions of the country, farther in the northern hemisphere. So we're going to be talking about how that happens, and we're going to be looking at some pictures that that people took of the total lunar eclipse as it happened throughout this weekend here. So make sure to stay tuned for those details. We'll be back right after this quick break. And good morning, everyone, and welcome back. Now, we're going to be talking about the total lunar eclipse that happened just a few days ago, not around the Arctics or around this country, but around the world. And just a fun fact about this total lunar eclipse, or also known as the blood moon, that around 85% of the world's population has viewed or was able to view this total lunar eclipse or blood moon there. So let's dive into some details about the anatomy of a lunar eclipse here. It's pretty much when the moon is right behind the shadows of the sun and the earth as well. So literally within the Earth's shadow as well as the sun's shadow, with the Earth sitting between the moon and the sun. But as you can see, the penumbra is the Earth's shadow, and the umbra is where the moon would be sitting right in between the Earth's shadow. And that's how it causes, the pretty much the red glow that it has here. I'm actually go back to that picture there when the Earth's shadow or the sun is displaying on the Earth, right? The Earth is pretty much showing this, it's getting the sun's angle, and it actually reflects off the blue and the orange light off of the sun within its shadow. So the penumbra is that mini shadow in between the Earth, that's showing off from the Earth or the sun's angle there. It's that tinier shadow where the moon moves past through. And once the moon moves past through it, the red and the orange colors deflect off of the shadow from the sun's angle, and that's what causes the moon to turn red or cause it to be called a blood moon out there. So some safe tips to watching the lunar eclipse, just in case it happens again. It actually is going to happen again in March of 2026. To avoid light pollution and get away from the city, it does not require special equipment. Let your eyes adjust to the darkness, and it may take several minutes to adjust to the darkness there. But here's a look at the total lunar eclipse path. Just so you guys know, so when it passes the Earth's partial shadow, which is called the penumbra, which I was correct about before, but when it passes through the penumbra, it starts to darken a little bit. That's when the partial eclipse it begins. But when it's outside of it, that's a penumbral eclipse again. When it begins, it starts to enter the penumbra. That's when the penumbral eclipse begins. But when it starts to enter the Earth's umbra, which is the Earth's shadow, that's when it starts to turn even darker than that, and it won't actually turn red until the moon is finally fully within the Earth's umbra. So that's Earth's smaller shadow. So it has a bigger shadow showing the sun's rays onto the Earth, and that's a big shadow right there. But Earth has also another shadow in between it called the umbra, and that's what causes the red and orange lights to be deflected into that shadow. So when the Earth moves in, or the moon moves into that shadow there, that's when the total eclipse begins. And the maximum eclipse, obviously, is when it enters the very middle of the Earth's umbra there, or the Earth's shadow, the Earth's smallest shadow. But the eclipse ends when it reaches the end of the umbra, obviously, and then when it enters the end of the very edge of the penumbra, that's when the partial eclipse ends, and the moon returns back to its normal color when it enters all shadows, both shadows there, the penumbra as well as the umbra. But here's a look at it at an explainer on how the blood moon is a blood moon in fact here. But I'm going to move myself off the screen here. Even in the Earth's shadow, enough sunlight passes through the atmosphere to illuminate the moon. So even when the sun is showing is displaying its rays onto the Earth, especially on the side where the Earth is facing the sun, it also deflects its rays outside or past the Earth there. But when it, as you can see by the arrows there, it also deflects some red and orange light within the Earth's shadow, not so much of just outside of the Earth's shadow. So it also brings about a couple of its rays even when it's nighttime. Basically here on Earth. But as you can see with the diagram here, the atmosphere filters out all colors except for red and orange, which is why the moon isn't white like usual. So when it passes through the umbra, if it did not reflect off the red and orange colors, it would just show as a darker moon. A darker colored moon. It wouldn't show as a bright moon like how it would usually be if the sun was displaying on it. But since it's in the Earth's shadow and trying to be deflected or since it's moving through the Earth's shadow there, and the Earth is covering the sun's rays there, it's showing the sun rays still has an effect on the shadow. So it reflects not only all light, but it reflects off the red and orange light, which is why it shows up as a bloodish color, like a reddish orange color there. So let's take a quick look at some pictures, what was seen out there across the portions that were able to see this total lunar eclipse there. So scrolling on this page, this is CBS News, and they grabbed some pictures from across the world. This is the main one from Minneapolis, Minnesota. We were not that area was not able to see the lunar eclipse as of this weekend, but that was a picture from the province of China, and as you can see, it has a reddish tint there. But and as you can see, it has sort of a lightish tint, as you can see on this portion of the moon. That means that it was entering the penumbra or the umbra, the smaller shadow, the smaller Earth shadow. This is a pretty cool picture in Athens, Greece. This is pretty much the moon sitting on top of the pretty good perspective of the moon sitting on top of the ancient Greek sculpture there. This is a picture from Tokyo in Japan. This is pretty cool. It just shows perspective there. I believe this is when the maximum eclipse was shown there. The blood moon picture is this is over Sydney in Australia on September 8th, which was yesterday, or just the very early morning hours of Sunday night, or Sunday, very late evening hours of Sunday night, as I should say. Here's a look at our another one in Shanghai. This is a pretty cool picture. Shows perspective there. This was in Odessa, in Russia, amid the Russian invasion of Ukraine. It says beachgoers rest on the shore of Black Sea with a full moon known as the blood moon during a phase of a total eclipse in the background in Odessa. This is a picture of the montage of pictures of the phases that it has. So when it's over in this phase, the moon is entering the penumbra, the outer shadow, and it's entering the penumbra. That's when it enters the umbra, finally enters the umbra, and that's its process going through the umbra and leaving the umbra. Would go back to this type of color, where it would show the moon's actual shadow. And here's a look at it during the daytime there. This is pretty cool, and it shows pretty big in the sky. I believe, where was this? It's St. Petersburg, Russia. This is pretty cool there. And as you can see, this is another picture of the blood moon in Beijing, China. So yeah, pretty cool pictures of the total lunar eclipse, and it actually happened here in North America on March 14th. If you do remember, it's actually going to happen once again. I believe March 3rd, 2026 is the next occurrence that it will have here. So make sure to mark that date on your calendar. That's the next time we will be able to see a phenomenon like this. It's seems fairly common around the world, but it's pretty rare to be visible here in the United States. And it actually happened, now going to happen 2 years in a row, as I've just researched before the show. It's likely to happen again in the same month as it did this year, just around a year from that time that it happened, around March 14th. This year that we are in, it's going to happen around March 3rd of the next year, 2026. So thank you guys so much for tuning in to today's episode. Once again, you could always rewatch the episode on the KSLA.com or KSLA.com or on your Roku, Apple TV, or any streaming platform. Make sure to tune into tomorrow's show, where we believe we have an interview with Evan Thomas, and Evan Thomason will be back on the podcast tomorrow, or he's actually talking about the tropics. My apologies. We're going to be talking about the tropics and why nothing's much really going on out there, so he's going to dive more details into that tomorrow. And later on this week, he does have an interview. This is why I mentioned before, but make sure to tune into tomorrow's episode starting at 10:30 a.m. Once again, thank you guys for tuning into the podcast today, and I will see you on the next one, more than likely by next week. I hope you guys have a great rest of your Tuesday, and make sure to enjoy those comfortable conditions before the warmer than average temperatures and the humidity looks to return back to the Arklatex later on this week. Once again, have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you on the next episode, which would be likely next week.